Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Batwoman. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we have Batwoman taking down a lot of the faceless gang so that she can obviously stop Snakebite from being all over the streets, which is also interesting. I wonder, was that ever a thing for Batman? Like the whole, news right there, showcasing all your operations and stuff like that. It feels like it, and I think the only reason why I'm thinking this, I feel like it's kind of a Jason Todd thing to be on news, to be like, I'm coming for you, Black Mask. And I think the only reason why I'm thinking that, it's because Jason was literally on news, on the news on Titan saying, we're back, bitches. So it's like, I think that's why that's stuck in my head to think like that. But I thought that was just such an interesting thing of, obviously dealing damage to the Faceless gang, but at the same time, Ryan is, as they brought up last episode, trying to attack this from not just the Batwoman from standpoint, but also on a Gotham level of, helping with the, Sophie's sister is helping build those centers and stuff like that, make those centers for at-risk youth. And you even had Spence coming in, that reporter, talking about it could be a target and stuff like that, which obviously for them it's like, yeah, but this does so much good for the community. Like, here you are spouting this negativity about it, but obviously it lowers crimes. It kids who are probably going down a bad route, 15% kind of graduate now. So it's a thing of, obviously it's helping on a social level and on a community level. But then suddenly it gets attacked by some dude in a mask, holding what they call them, kilovolt. And I thought that was such an interesting development as it progressed, because at first it's Spence is, because at first it seems like it might be him that's the one responsible, because the big thing is why attack the community center? It's not like there's money out of it, what are you doing? And then Spence talks about the fact is that community center, this newest one, wasn't the only one. There's been other community centers that have been striked too, and he's the one trying to figure things out. And just as he was kind of working at the Gazette trying to figure things out, he ended up getting fired. Well, he ends up getting attacked. Luckily, Mary's able to help him. But when they kind of finally put all the pieces together, they realized, because they ended up finding a fingerprint, which I love. I love Luke being like, "No, I got this," and then the weapon starts popping. He's like, "Whoa!" He's like, "See, told you." And she's like, "Mm-hmm." I like that. I really like the Ryan and Luke's dynamic, how they bounce off each other like that. But it turns out the fingerprint belongs to someone in prison. The moment they said that, I was like, okay, so someone from the prison is letting them out. And I swear, something else, I don't know if it's recent, but I remember there's something that did a similar thing. I don't remember what show it was, but they would basically get criminals released from prison to commit crimes and then just pretend no, they weren't. I don't remember. Was it on Prodigal Son? Was it someone it was like a crime drama or something. I just can't remember what. If you know what, I don't know if you're going to know what show I'm talking about. Maybe multiple shows have done that, but that particular storyline. But it's something that's in the back of my mind, and I just can't remember what I'm thinking of. It's going to bother the crap out of me. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting development, and even I was still wondering why is that about still attacking? Because obviously they're benefiting because it's we get a lower sentence after the fact. But I'm like, well, what is the dude Ellis who runs the place? What does he get out of it? And it's it makes sense, because community centers prevent, stop at-risk youth from going down the path, and but for him it's that's cutting into his pocket, because prisons are get money, especially private prisons, are based on how many people. I think it applies to all prisons, but if you're a privately owned prison, of course you're going to want more people in your prison. So destroying those community centers, leaving these kids with nowhere to go, so they're more likely to turn to a life of crime, because that's all they have going for them. They don't have anything or anyone there to kind of turn things around for them, which is super messed up on a human level to do that. Luckily, they were all taken down. I love that Luke showed up and backed her up, and I love Ryan being like, "No, I had that, right?" He's like, "Yeah, sure." So I thought that was pretty interesting to find that out. I also really loved the line of, "Oh yeah, Obviously, Batwoman took care of things, but reporter Horton Spence put it to ink. The Batwoman just find her Lois Lane. I was like, I thought that was so dope. I love that line. I had to rewind it. I was like, that's a really good line, because it's also that thing of, oh, we don't have to wonder what it's like. Oh, who's the Lois Lane of this universe? Well, we know who the Lois Lane of this universe is. I mean, in a sense of like knowing Lois Lane instead of, you know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, if this was like a couple years ago, we'd be like, oh yeah, I'm curious. We know it'd be like, oh, Lois Lane is in this continuity, but we wouldn't know her. Now we have a face and personality to attribute to it. We've gotten to know Lois Lane through Superman and Lois. So that's the whole. Oh, and the crossovers. But that's what I'm talking about. But I thought that was so interesting. I'm like, but to me, that's so interesting if that ends up being the case, because she doesn't really have a Gordon to go to. I guess the closest thing to a Gordon she's got is Sophie, which obviously they have it's definitely not it's not a Batman and Gordon relationship, because obviously she has personal issues with Sophie, but she's kind of put a lot of that aside, especially when she thought she was going to die, and having Sophie by her side, kind of understanding right, I'm not it's like, yeah, there's still a little distance between Ryan and Sophie, but Batwoman and Sophie, they're at a better place, I think. So we see that there. I don't know if Batman had a lot of relationship with Vicky. I think in some storyline she's a more minor character. The one I know of is Telltale Batman. She's a much bigger character. Won't go into spoilers on that, but I'm wondering, did they always have that relationship? Because I think Dave dated in the comic. I mean, I don't know if Batman and Vicky. I think Bruce and Vicky, sure. Which makes you wonder, has Vicky Vale worked on the Gazette in this continuity? I would assume so. I wonder tier-wise, it's just because you never hear about Vicky in the same conversation you hear about Lois. Lois is oh, you hear Lois Lane, that's Lois Lane. You hear Vicky Vale, you just don't, like I said, I think maybe there are some Batman storylines that revolve around her, but she is always more so a small character. Like I said, she's just not the biggest name, because it's actually interesting, because I don't know if, I would assume Kat Grant's from the comic books too, but it's until Supergirl I didn't know about her, but I know that that's a thing where it's Kat was always kind of right, it was always kind of, I think, a little neck and neck between her and Lois. I think they kind of introduced that element in Supergirl, of there being that back and forth. Also, Kat also having a thing for Clark too. That's a whole thing. Regardless, we want a whole tangent and stuff like that, because I forgot about that, because she's when Clark pops up in Supergirl, she's oh, Clark, and she gets all flirtatious and stuff like that. Regardless, I went on a huge tangent, but my point was I wondered, does Vicky serve that role? Is she kind of the Lois Lane for Batman sometimes? The reason why I'm also curious, since they threw that out there, could we potentially see that more? Well, to be fair, I was about to say it doesn't work that way, because it's well, there's technically a reporter they know, but that was Kate knows Kara, so Kate knows Kara, but Ryan hasn't been introduced to her yet, so they don't have that same dynamic. So she doesn't have a reporter buddy Kara like that. So I guess this could almost be a more in-house type of thing of in my city, and also I wonder. I hope that'd be pretty dope if they created that dynamic. That's the whole reason why I went on a huge tangent. I do apologize. It was a huge ass tangent, but that just got me thinking about that. I thought that'd be kind of interesting. To kind of have a reporter on your side to kind of do stuff you need stuff brought to the press and stuff like that. You have someone on your side that can do that. Once again, you kind of technically already do with Kara, but I think more so if it's someone in-house in city, it'd make it a little easier. Once again, especially considering Ryan, because the Kara connection is more Kate's thing, because I don't think Luke or Mary knows about Kara being Supergirl. I don't think they know. Kate might have told them. I don't know. I mean, because it's not her place to tell them about Kara, because that's Kara's secret identity. Regardless. But so there was that element to it. Obviously, there's a whole thing of her visiting. I butchered that. Visiting Angelique, and I thought that was interesting. Obviously, it's and the sad irony of it, because it was the flip side of that a long time ago. Angelique didn't visit, if I remember correctly, and that was kind of a whole issue because she felt too guilty at the time. But obviously Angelique doesn't want to give up anyone because it's like she knows like no, like Black Mask will come out there. She's like, I can protect myself. It's like, well, Batwoman. It's like, what's between me and Batwoman isn't like that. She's like, yeah, it isn't until it is, which is sad because it's like, yeah, eventually I'm assuming. I immediately thought if Angelique was ever in trouble, like Ryan would probably go like, all right, come here with me. Okay, here's the Batcave. I'm Batwoman. I thought that might be where it goes, but it didn't go that direction. Sadly, by the time they caught up to the people that were responsible, Black Mask had already cleaned house and killed them. So, but I mean, it works out in the end because even Angelique being like, it's always just been, I mean, no, it was Ryan that said, like, it's always been you and me. So no matter what, I won't let Black Mask get you. I will protect you. Because it's like, yeah, Batwoman can't be with me 24/7, but I can. Technically, Batwoman could, if I keep doing it. If Ryan wanted, obviously Ryan being both of them, so she can just do that, I'm curious, I'm curious about that too, like, because Ryan's not in a position where anyone she cares about knows her secret identity. I wonder who's going to be the first person she ends up confiding into. It might not even be her choice. Like, is it going to be like, will Sophie be the first one to find out? Will it be, will she tell Angelique, or will Angelique find out? I'm curious. I mean, because technically the first person to know it outside of like the core people is, Alice, and that's just because for her revenge she wanted Alice to know who she was. So once again, kind of a bad thing to let your arch nemesis know who you are, so they can come at you at any time, especially someone crazy like Alice. But that's a whole problem she'll have to deal with eventually at some point down the road, I'm sure that's not just going to, like, her knowing her identity is not going anywhere. That's going to be a whole thing. Well, with the whole Enigma thing, which we'll get to later, that could be a possibility. It's a whole thing. I'll wait till a little bit to dive into that. But I love that, like, Black Mask being like, all right, anyone else wants them? Like, I've got plenty of bullets to spare. Like, once again, psychotic comedy. It's weird. Like, there's some psychotic levity to it. And it's like, you can go ahead and kill us all, boss, but it's not going to change anything. None of us know how to make snakebite. Your two people are Ocean, who's up and disappeared, and Angelique, who's in prison. So the moment she gets released, put in witness protection, I guess they were just waiting for that time. I guess that's why... Well, because he was already cleaning house already, but I guess he figured, well, this would be the best opportunity to use this. So, because he's very influential. Because the way he was talking to Jacob earlier, I don't know if, like, they know each other in the past. It seems like he's a big contributor to the Crows. They are a private security organization, so they are funded by people, the rich and powerful. That's what kind of makes them even more shady. That, like, the rich and powerful kind of pay your budget, pay you, so it just makes you seem a little, So it seems, I don't know if Roman and Jacob go that far back, or is it more so like, oh, I'm invested in the Crows, and that's how we became, I don't know. Which is interesting. I think that's so interesting. Like, I mean, I guess that backs up his declaration of like, oh yeah, helping the Crows stop crime, and it's like, oh, you're the main contributor of crime right now. I mean, to be fair, he also talked about wanting it. That was a whole conversation earlier too, because even Luke was like, yeah, and made sure to say Batwoman's never killed anyone's daughter. Because I don't want to be in a position to say Batwoman's never killed anyone. Because yeah, don't ask me about that. Notice Ryan didn't push that. It's like, yeah, don't ask about that. Don't ask about Cartwright. Who? What? No, what? I didn't say Cartwright. What are you talking about? So I'm sure it turned into something like that. But also it's saying that the Crows were responsible. So I'm wondering, like I said, is it kind of like a Caden James from Arrow type of thing of like being manipulated? Is it similar to that, or is there something more going on here? Come out to say like, not unless it's a crisis thing that changed things, not unless we got someone else. Well, I was just about to say, not unless can we find out Enigma doesn't just like block memories? She also changes them. So it's like, not unless she got the Roman and made him believe Batwoman killed his daughter, like, because Enigma might be like, actually she might be the main antagonist, and like Black Mask, she's just manipulating him into being her like end all be all. I don't know, maybe there's something to that. Just the fact that they introduced that element of, oh, she can not only erase memories and block memories, she can also change them. So, well, we also see that that's where they're going down with the route of Kate, but that's why I'm like, where would that come from otherwise? I don't know. Regardless, that's just kind of interesting. They do have Angelique by the end of the episode kidnapping her because it's the means of, being able to make the drug again. So that's going to be another motivator to go after Black Mask for Ryan, not only just to stop him, but also to save Angelique. So we'll see how things kind of turn out on that front. But getting back to what I was saying, I thought it was just interesting. Like, I guess keep your enemies close, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. And so I guess staying pretty tight knit with the Crows in particular, Jacob, kind of works to your benefit. You know, I guess that allows you to kind of know their ins and outs of their operations. Granted, it kind of screws you over because, like, yeah, you know what they're up to pretty much, but you don't know what. You don't have access to what Batwoman's doing. She's the one that's kind of wrecking your business, like as a one woman army, you know, type of thing. So it'll be interesting to see where things kind of go on that front. There's the Jacob side of things, which he gets jumped and gets injected with snakebite, which we learn a little bit more about it. And basically, it attacks the part of the brain where memories are stored, in particular the parts of the brain that kind of connect to like regrets and stuff like that. So Venom, I mean, I'm about to call him Venom, geez. What makes snakebite so addictive is it allows you to kind of trick your brain into allowing you to rewrite memories. So being able to rewrite all your previous mistakes and sins, what's more addictive than that? And obviously for Jacob, it was just but I mean, you know, it's that first taste, but it's really addictive. So I guess they wanted this. I guess this is Roman's means of revenge, because the Crows is Jacob's baby. So like destroying him on a personal level in his own way will destroy the Crows, I think, or at the very least, it's cutting the snake off the head type of situation, or rather of the Crow in this particular case. But obviously, like, Roman made sure to, like, Jacob, could you get rid of this for me? Yeah, I found it on one of my employees, you know, so trying to push it more and more to him because it is that addictive and just needs to nudge him in the right direction, which sadly, like, you know, it seems like it has to be a 1-2 because obviously we know Enigma and Roman are working together. So it might have been a thing of, hey, I need you to push him in this direction. So to push him in a direction where he's super vulnerable, where he needs to rely on his drug just to feel better. So she suggested, well, both of your daughters are gone, both Kate and obviously Beth. You can't change the past. At the very least, make things better with Mary, the one daughter you have left. Granted, it doesn't work. In his own way, he was trying to help, saying like, oh, I can legitimize this. But for Mary, it's like, I don't want to legitimize this, because by legitimizing this, I'm going to create a system much like a regular hospital where people have to be charged, have to have insurance. I'm helping out the people that no one else in Gotham, that you ignore, that the healthcare system kind of ignores. People kind of fall through the crack who have nowhere else to go. I'm offering that to them. But if you're like, not everything can just have money thrown at it. And for her, it's like, ever since, this is the first time since Kate died that I've felt, you know, kind of good for the first time in a long time. And it's like, you know, because losing Kate put a hole in her heart, and doing good, knowing that she's helping people, made her feel better. So, and like her dad wanted to just come in there and kind of take that away and change it. And it's like, no, I can legitimize it. You haven't even finished medical school, but it's like, I'm trying, like the fact is that you don't realize, like, I just want it to be left as it is because I can do so much more good for a lot of people who fall through the cracks. Like the fact is that you can't think like that, Dad. Then I just, you know, I will never forgive you type of thing. And that just sends him spiraling again just to feel better, which even Alice ended up overhearing that. She's like, I wish I would forgive you, Dad, but honestly, forgetting's a lot easier. So can we dive into this with the Julia thing? Because she confides in Sophie that like, oh yeah, like my memory's a little like wonky. Yeah, I was drinking a little bit, trying to find one ex after being dumped by another. But it's like, maybe you were drinking a lot. And it's like, that seems like the simplest possibility. But the moment she meets up with Alice, who calls her out, you know, which Alice is just, I mean, which Julia is kind of poking fun at her, by being like, oh, you kind of need me because without me, you kind of have no one. You don't have Kate around to, like, care about you. Everyone else is sidetracked. Even the new Batwoman is like, yikes, you're not even a concern to her. She's off doing other things. She's not even worried about you anymore. So you kind of have no one to terrorize, and, you know, and it's like when you're kind of left to your own insanity, like, I'm sure that can just drive you up a wall in its own right. So, but she confides in Julia that she's looking for Enigma and admits like Enigma's existence, because it's like, yeah, I know because it's happened to me before. But then like Julia kind of realizes like maybe it happened to her. So she ends up finding out that she had a visit with Evelyn Rhymes. I was like, okay. I don't know if I brought this up or responded to the person, but I believe it was last episode. I hope I did respond to the person because I appreciate them letting me know, but I don't remember. I might have thought about it, and because I saw the message, I don't remember if I actually replied or not. But if I didn't, I want to thank the person, even though I don't have the name on hand, who let me know last episode that Evelyn, we didn't know her name at the time, but just Enigma, she's apparently Riddler's sister, which is interesting. I was like, oh, because I had a feeling, because I was like, it's just too much of a coincidence for someone else in this universe to have the name Enigma, you know? Which I guess her name is also supposed to be a pun too, because her last name is Rhyme, E-Rhyme. So I'm sure she probably changed it, but also keeping in a kind of in a vein, because riddles can rhyme. So I figured her name was going to have something with an E to it, because his name's Edward Nigma, why he's Enigma. So her being Evelyn, so I'm sure like her name fits the same way too. It's like I'm an Enigma because my real last name is Enigma, so I'm Evelyn Enigma, Enigma as well. So it's interesting. I'm wondering, because we heard about the Riddler being referenced once in this continuity, or maybe just once, because Tommy referenced him last season, because it's like, yeah, he's the one that let Tommy know that Bruce was Batman. So other than that, we don't know Riddler's situation as continuity. Locked up, free, somewhere out there doing your own thing. We don't know the state of a lot of Batman villains. We know where some ended up being just because of like Elseworlds. They made references to some of those. Other than that, we don't know. We're in this current continuity, post Crisis on Infinite Earths, like what's changed, who's still locked up, who's just running amok, who's not even active anymore because Batman's not even, stuff like that. But Evelyn obviously being close to this whole thing by pretending to be the psychiatrist who knows all there is to know about. It's so interesting. She's like, oh, I'm very good at my job, so I know you've been taking snakebite. It's like, no, because you're working with the guy that gave him snakebite. Sadly, Julia confronts her, but ends up having her memory wiped and changed. And now she's like, oh, I'm actually transferring to Berlin just because I think she said Berlin, just because she's like, oh, I just wanted to change. So, there's that. I'm curious what's going to happen during the interaction between her and Alice. Because Alice wants her memories wiped, so maybe that's fine. But maybe they probably want Alice to stay the way she is, especially with whatever they've got planned for Kate. So maybe they'll leave things as be there just because it caused more havoc and chaos and stuff like that. Like I said, I just get the feeling like she's up to something. Also, she's walking around with a damn cane. Like, God, you and your brother, granted, you're not covered in question marks, so I guess that makes you a little bit better than your brother, but still, it's like, the whole cane thing, that's interesting. Well, that's also interesting, too, because it's like, oh, these are the canes, and you're running the cane. It's a whole thing. But, I don't know if that's ever... Well, it gets used as a weapon. I know the one that makes me think of it is like Telltale. Like, obviously, like you get in season 2 of Batman, you got a more like melee fighting Riddler using his cane as a weapon. Obviously, I don't know if in the comic books he's ever done that. Most versions of the Riddler just like... The only one that comes to my mind immediately is the one from Harley Quinn who got super buff. That's what immediately comes to my mind, the Riddler that got super buff in season 2. Other than that, like I never think of Riddler as the combative type in that sense. More of I'm a killer and I use riddles. That's kind of like, obviously I think more like he is in The Batman. Like that's what I think more of Riddler. Obviously not that dark and creepy, but can be. God, I went on a huge tangent. Regardless, it's just, I'm really curious to find out what like Evelyn's plan is. Like, why are you working with Black Mask? Are you the main bad guy potentially this season? Like I said, I get the feeling like you're manipulating Black Mask and he doesn't even realize it. Maybe not. Maybe that whole, Batwoman as well as the Crows killed my daughter, that's something else entirely. I don't know. Like I said, got Jacob spiraling. We have Angelique being kidnapped. A lot of moving pieces at this time. And I'm really curious to see ultimately where it all ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.